Good morning, Kentucky. There's 4.3 million people in Kentucky. 3 million of those people vote. Most of them are registered to vote. And you need 51% to win the election. Usually it's about a 40% turnout rate. So you need 1 million to 1.5 million votes. And the best way is to go talk to people, shake people's hands. Show them that you're an okay guy. You listen to everything that they got to say. And if they have any ideas for changes that they'd like to see, what are the biggest changes that they would like to see? So what are the biggest changes that you would like to see? And get their input, and then also share some of the big ideas that I'm in favor of. I really like the guaranteed minimum income. I really like that. And I think Kentucky actually is wealthy enough to do it. Japan runs a deficit 3 times their GDP. We have a GDP of $186 billion. We can borrow up to $186 billion. We would be okay. So they want to borrow money. I think that was Greg Stumbo's plan. Greg Stumbo's been part of Frankfurt for a long time. He's the one that's got House Bill 3 up for discussion, the Gatewood-Galbraith Medical Cannabis Act. So Gatewood-Galbraith having a longer and better legacy after his life than during his life. You have like Gatewood stock, right? Like Woodstock, and then you have now you got this Medical Cannabis Act. I read an article recently about Gatewood that said that he was the one that envisioned the hemp program. And he does. Gatewood Galbraith had a plan to legalize marijuana, license it like they did with tobacco. Every acre of land in Kentucky has so much marijuana base, and that's all the base that they had. You could sell that base to other people. If you own land, you own the base, and that would be the same thing that they do with marijuana. So do the same thing that they did with tobacco that they did with marijuana. Tobacco is a dying industry. It's one of the biggest resources that we were reliant on. It's what built America. Jamestown would have failed if they didn't have tobacco. The thing I want to talk about this, an act relating to the medical use of cannabis. This is a good thing. This is a great development. Greg Stumbo is standing up and making a good stand, and he's saying, hey, we need to at least discuss this. We need to at least talk about this. And but look at all the stuff he says. Create new sections, KRS Chapter 218A, to define terms, require the Department for Public Health to operate a medical cannabis program, require prospective patients to possess a diagnosis from a physician, possess a registry identification card issued by the department, require the department to publish an annual list of varieties of cannabis that contain a low-level THC. So this require prioritization of low THC containing varieties of cannabis by the department, grant priority access to children and individuals with medication-resistant seizures to low THC cannabis, require patients under 18 to receive cannabis with a low THC content, state guidelines for registry identification cards, exempt patients that possess a card. So very specific stuff, right? Basically, there's only going to be very few people that's going to sign up. You have to have a strong medical need for it and nothing to do with THC. So this is to stop the legalization of marijuana. There is the true. I remember conservatives pointing out, heck, this medical marijuana thing, it's just a fig leaf. You just want to legalize it. Why don't you just say you want to legalize it? That's what you want to do. Don't just legalize, for medicine without THC. THC has medicinal properties. It cures anxiety, and it cures nausea, glaucoma, cancer, HIV. There's so many things that it actually takes care of. Not just the THC, but the whole plant medicine. And so this is, I got a problem with this so-called Medical Marijuana Act. They already passed medical marijuana last year, right? CBD. cannabidiol, the only type of marijuana, medical marijuana you could have, which was to stop the real medical marijuana act, and it was to stop the real legalization movement. It should be legalized. Why would you not legalize it? Of course you should legalize it. And then they got this amendment here. So I think he's taken probably a controversial position, right? He's the Speaker of the House. That's a very high profiled politician standing up for medical marijuana without THC. But he's already getting these amendments attached to it. Increase the scope of mandatory coroner medical examiner reporting deaths involving Schedule 1 controlled substance deaths. What does that have to do with what he's doing? Direct a portion to recapture savings from criminal justice reforms be directed to funding KY ASAP programs. Department for Medicaid Services provide a substance abuse benefit, specify the controlled substance treatments. I don't know if this guy's trying to help it or trying to hurt it, okay? A lot of times you want to put an amendment on it to hurt it, right? Well, I wanted this bill, but I don't want the amendment. Well, then you kick the amendment off, right? You just passed the bill in its original form without the amendment. So it's a way to kill the bill or bury it in committee. But really, the bills don't even matter. The legislature, they will pass maybe 3 or 4 laws this session during the summer. So they'll pass 3 or 4 laws, go back, tell their constituents, hey, we stopped this, or we passed seatbelt laws, or, we got this thing passed. And then they all squabble over the budget up until the last second. And then once the budget is passed, they all go home. So it's one big money game. That's the only power that they have. That's the biggest power that they utilize. And it's all about I think it's either $9 billion or $20 billion. $9 or $20 billion. And so if we have a GDP of $186 billion, and we're worried about a few million shortfall here and there, we could easily borrow out of this. That would be an easy thing to do. And it's what should be done. It makes sense, okay? So to keep the programs that we have, right now the pension is faced with a shortfall. There's always a shortfall. Every year that Governor Beshear has been in there, and he's been making cuts across the board in social services. We don't have to do that. We can get the money. We can get a bailout from the federal government. Just give us free money. Or we could just not just a bailout, but we could also get tax the rich and don't touch social programs. Don't touch the social programs. Raise taxes on corporate. The 1% in Kentucky are paying less taxes than the working class people. The 1% has a cheaper tax rate, proportional. They only pay 6-7%. The average Kentucky citizen pays 10%. So raise to save the pension, to save the so-called shortfall. They need $1 billion in there every year. We have $186 billion worth of GDP that we produce. Since we have $180 billion, Japan borrows 3 times their GDP. So that means we could borrow whatever 360 plus 180 is. That's $540 billion. $540 billion. Let's borrow $540 billion. Let's just maximize the deficit. Let's go to Japan. And $540 billion. Everybody gets a car. Everybody gets a laptop. Everybody gets a house. Everybody gets clothes and food and water and sewage and anything you need to survive. A house, land. Everybody gets enough to survive. And then capitalism comes in afterwards. Guaranteed minimum income. Your guaranteed minimum income is, your life. How much water, food, housing, clothing, land, taxes, how much any of this stuff, any of your personal expenses throughout the year taken care of. Get internet for everybody. Free internet for everybody. It would be a better, more just, more equitable system. It would be fair and it would be better. And so, here's my hat. I'll tip my hat to Greg Stumbo. I'm glad that he's standing up for this. The medical marijuana issue's got a big boost in Kentucky when House Speaker Greg Stumbo announced that he would sponsor a medical marijuana bill for the 2015. Wow, 2015 Stumbo's bill would make medical marijuana legal for Kentucky patients who are certified, something and another. It's very restrictive in many respects. It covers a broad range of medical conditions. It does not allow patients to cultivate their own plants, and only allows medical marijuana to be used in a non-smoked form. You can't even smoke it. However, despite its restrictiveness, HB 3 would be a great relief to many patients who are suffering needlessly without any form to access to medical marijuana. True, it should be passed because it's a progress. It's better than what we have now, but it doesn't go far enough. Marijuana is the #1 cash crop in Kentucky. We're moonshine state. You can't mess with the hill, people. Moonshine, pillbillies, heroin, meth. It's poverty. It's because of the economics. And if you want Kentucky to get richer and greener, you would vote for Jeff Young. You would hear Jeff Young out. And if you care about democracy or cared about your state, you would hear what he has to say. Even if you don't want to vote for him, even if you already got your guy, listen to him. He may have an idea that would just totally change everything. I don't, he's not even talking about marijuana. I am. But he is in favor of it. He is in favor of legalizing marijuana. And just that is enough. Because once, let's say Greg Stumbo got his bill passed in the House, the Democratic House, then it would have to get passed in the Senate, which is Republican. They ain't going to sign it. They ain't going to pass it. And even if they did, let's say the Republicans all of a sudden go Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin's Alaska has legal marijuana. Sarah Palin's Alaska. And so let's say they did. Let's say they went, totally against everything they've been talking about their entire lives, realized they're a bunch of hypocrites, and admitted that they're a bunch of hypocrites, and stood up and they said, we are in favor of this. Then it has to go to the governor. And Steve Beshear is against it. Jack Conway is against it. Marijuana will not be legalized for many years if Jack Conway gets into office, or if any of these Republican candidates get into office, or the independent. There's not a single candidate on the slate that is better than Jeff Young. Jeff Young is smart, gentle, humble, a radical man. He wants fundamental change. That's all radical means. He wants fundamental change. Fundamental. The system is fucked. The poor get poorer, the rich get richer. We can do a better system. He's got a vision. He's got the ideas. He's intelligent. He's a genius. Chomsky educated. MIT engineer. Was a state employee working with the environment. Kentucky's a beautiful state. Let's keep it beautiful. Let's keep it green. Let's make it greener. Let's have a big tourist industry. Make Highway 80 into a historic tourist corridor. And turn Frankfurt, put a dam in Frankfurt and back all that water up. And have a big lake in the eastern Kentucky mountains and call it Gatewoods Lake. We can do so much better. We can dream so much more. And all you need is an honest, fair man at the helm. That's all you need for Kentucky governor. All you need is an honest, fair man. Doesn't have to be, in fact, we need average people. Everybody should be running for office. Everybody in Kentucky, if you've never ran for office, go run for office. I don't even want you to vote. I want you to run for office. I want you to be sheriff. I want you to be mayor. I want you to be judge executive, magistrates. I want you to be soil and water conservation and district supervisors. Just go out and go run for an office. All you need is the gumption. All you need to be is a citizen for so many years and a certain age. If you're, just check out the age and see if you've been there. Usually it's a year. If you've been there for a year and if you're 24 years old, you can get most positions. If you're 24 years old and you've been living in Kentucky for at least a year, you can be a city councilman. So be a city councilman. Everybody stand up. Occupy the government seats. Occupy the government chairs. We can have electoral revolutions. We can, instead of just sitting on our hands complaining about those guys, those politicians, they don't know what they're doing. The economy's slipping. The empire is failing. Stand up and see what can you do. And I think when you start to stand up, I think we'll have a better conversation. Instead of sitting on our, butts complaining about everybody, we'll see that it's a hard job. The hard decisions need to be made. And how do you determine whether or not people can make those hard decisions? And I don't know. These are good questions. Who has the right ideas? Whose ideas could get passed? Who can you believe? Who can you trust? So when you talk about, all the promises, candidate Obama was different than President Obama. Where did candidate Obama go? But I knew about Obama because I knew about Matt Gonzalez and Ralph Nader. So I didn't have all these high expectations. They ran him as a blank slate candidate. He didn't say much. He obfuscated the truth. He gave a little show. He was turned into a product, and he revolutionized the American elections. Used social media more effectively than any other candidate has ever done. ever. And he's passed more major pieces of legislation since Harry Truman. So he's going to be recognized as a great president. There's going to be monuments, roads. People, if you hated him as president, you're going to hate him as after president, because he's the whole world. He was one of the best politicians America's ever had. Very smart, had a good head on his shoulders, and anyways, but he was, he smoked marijuana, and he's in favor of it. And change.org, he says, okay, American people, I'm president now. What law do you want to change? And they said, marijuana. And he said, fuck you. Now be serious. The top 10 issues on change.org. Legalize marijuana. You want to change? You want to be a transformative president? Legalize marijuana. He's smoking pot. I even heard that he was like dealing cocaine or something out of his college dorm. I don't know. I haven't heard it. It's something about his book or something. He was a coke dealer. I don't know. But regardless, since I've been, 8 years old or so, Bill Clinton, he smoked marijuana. He didn't inhale it, but he smoked the marijuana, right? Fuck you. Fuck these liars, man. God. American people love their bullshitters. That's what George Carlin said. And Bill Clinton, I smoked it, I didn't inhale, and I didn't like it. You are so lame, Bill Clinton. Oh, my God. And for everybody to be, like, so in love with him, oh, my God. He's a liar. He smoked marijuana. He was president in 1992. I was 10 years old. And he was president for 8 years. And then George W. Bush, he was snorting cocaine. He was an alcoholic, which is way worse than marijuana. So we've had alcoholics, we've had cokeheads, we've had potheads. And then after Bush, Barack Obama. So since 1992, for the last 23 years, America has been run by cokeheads, alcoholics, or potheads. So I think we need to stop being hypocritical. We need to be honest about all these issues, not just marijuana. We need to be honest about all the issues. The economy is struggling, but the economy isn't just about making rich people rich. It's about making all people rich. A rising tide should lift all boats. American corporations had a windfall of a year, making record profits, getting all that money, just money, all the way to the top of the mountain. The Rocky Mountains are the Alps. But none to the valleys and to the people. And the Great Valley, the Promised Land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the Promised Land. And I'm not worthy. Thine eyes have seen the coming of the glory of the Lord. So, they have been dragging their feet. They're going to keep on dragging their feet. The Lexington Herald Leader editorialized in favor of medical marijuana. See, last year they passed the CBD. Governor signs limited, very, very limited. And so this one's limited already, and this one is even more limited. So basically we have like a minuscule, the tiniest bit of medical marijuana that actually says. ACLU study shows Kentucky's harsh marijuana laws result in racially disproportionate arrest rates. So Jack Conway has been carrying on with the racist war on drugs, which has failed. It's a public health issue. Quit criminalizing people. That should be the last thing we do. Criminalizing people? You're a criminal. You can't be part of society. Really? You don't think that's a little too much? You don't think you're maybe it's a little too much, I think. It's a little bit. So I'm gonna check this out because that seems like a 2013 study. Not only is it a racist war on drugs, it's ridiculous. But the racism, that's an issue that Jeff Young's talking about: racism, abortion, energy, coal, electricity, and the Republican class war. And the Republican class war is coming. He is right. There's a shock doctrine. The counter-revolutionaries have been invigorated because the chickens voted for Colonel Sanders, and now the Colonel Sanders needs to sell some chicken. So he's going to chop off some heads and dip some chicken legs in grease and fry them up, serve them to the public so they could devour the chickens. Why would the chickens vote for the Colonel Sanders? Why would the chickens vote for Colonel Sanders? I'll have to take a look at this closer, but that'd be a good direction for, my radicalness to be seen through the prism of Jeff Young. And he's got those 4 issues. And so those are the 4 issues I need to focus on. Also need to read this. So much reading. There's so little time. There's never any time